Hey guys, and welcome back to Dark Matter Podcast. I'm Dominique.
And I'm Avalon. Today we're going to be telling you guys about something that we just think is crazy. I don't even know how to start talking about it, and we just honestly can't believe this place even exists.
Yeah, and today we're talking about the infamous Mckamey Manor. And before we talk about this, I just want to put out a trigger warning. What we're going to be talking about today includes graphic descriptions of violence and torture, so just keep that in mind if you are sensitive to stuff like that. So, for those of you who don't know, Mckamey Manor is an American haunted house attraction where they mimic survival horror events. And just to be clear, this isn't your average run of the mill scary house, like Not Scary Farm or Universal Horror Nights. It's definitely less about ghosts and jump scares and more about physical and mental discomfort. And during our research, we were able to find other haunted houses that are kind of similar to this. Avalon, do you want to tell them about that?
Yeah, for sure. So, one that I found that's actually local to us because we're here in Southern California. There's one I found in Fullerton, which is very near to or very close to us. It's called the 17th Door or just 17th Door. And from what I could tell, the reviews were all super good. They were all like 4 point something, 4 out of 5 stars. Like people seem to really enjoy it, and it seems like it's kind of an in between where it's like it's not just like you said, a run of the mill like haunted mansion. Like it is scarier and it's more intense, but it's not as distasteful as the one we're going to get into, the subject of today's episode. And another one is Blackout in New York. And the same thing. So I heard like really like more positive things about this one. I think it is like more intense. Like there's definitely some like psychological discomfort, but it's again just nothing compared to Mckamey Manor.
Right, and you could say, and like some people have said, that what they do inside the manor is basically torture. So, guests have to sign a 40-page liability waiver that basically gives them permission to do whatever they want to you. And I actually found the waiver for the San Diego location, and it's about 23 pages long, actually, not 40. But I found a non disclosure agreement, and the link is on the website. But I don't think that it's legally binding because a non-disclosure agreement basically says like you are not allowed to talk about what you experienced in the manor for a certain period of days. But I really don't think it's legally binding because I read over it. It doesn't seem like a lawyer has looked through it, and people have shared their stories online. They've made videos about it, so I'm not sure how legal that is. But moving on. So a tour in Mckamey Manor can last up to 8 hours, and despite this, there are actually thousands of people on the waiting list to enter the manor, and so the only entrance fee required is actually cans of dog food. And it was founded by a man named Russ Mckamey. It was originally located in San Diego, California, on Mckamey's property, and has since expanded to locations in Huntsville, Alabama, and Nashville, Tennessee.
Right. So next we'll just go into a few of the list of requirements or some of the requirements that they list on their website. So first of all, you have to be 21 years old to do it. You can be 18 to 20 years old with your parents' approval, which we were kind of confused about because at the end of the day, if you're 18 years old in America, you're considered an adult and you can kind of
Mm-hmm.
like make decisions for yourself. So I'm not really sure how they get around that. Again, like it kind of comes back to what you're saying about the NDA. Like we don't really know how legal it is or how like illegal it is. And a lot of the forms they have that you have to fill out or the liability disclosure, all of those things, they're very, like you said, they don't really sound like a lawyer was involved. They don't sound very professional. There's a lot of like errors, and it's just kind of, it seems like he's doing it just to like save his own ass, but like he also, it just comes off as very unprofessional, and I'm like I don't know how legal it is and I don't know how legit it is. You know what I mean? So
Right.
just with all of it, we're really like not sure. It's funny if you look up Mckamey Manor, like one of the first things that comes up is how is it legal? Like is it legal? And I think that's our question too. It's like how is
Right.
this legal? But moving back onto the list of requirements, so you have to complete a sports physical and get a doctor's letter stating that you're in physically or you're physically and mentally cleared to do this tour, which I never really understood because I'm like, if you literally want to, like you are going out of your way to like participate in torture, like you're or to be tortured, not even participate, to be tortured, how can you get a clear bill of health, like of mental health, if you're going out of your way to get tortured? You know what I mean? I'm like, if I'm a doctor, I'd be like, why do you need this again? Oh, so you can go get tortured? Yeah, you're not healthy then. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I just wonder how that all works. And like, again,
Yeah.
it's just very. I know it's for their own, to save their own asses, but it's just very confusing. And then moving on, you have to sign a background, or you have to pass a background check. You have to pass a screening via FaceTime or phone, and that will come in later because then that's when they kind of get more information on you. You have to have proof of medical insurance. You have to sign the 40-page waiver. And then you have to pass a drug test on the day of. So it's kind of crazy because there's more hoops to jump through than like if you're getting a job, but it's just to
Yeah.
be tortured for a few hours. Like it's very, very bizarre. Um,
Yeah, again, I feel like what you're right, you're saying like it definitely is to just cover their ass, but I feel like, just to say like, hey, these people have definitely been checked over, you have to pass all these hoops. So just so I feel like they can say like they definitely did this willingly and of like with their own consent.
Right, so they can never say that they were like forced to do it, but it's just so funny to me this idea that you're gonna get like your mental health and your physical health screened in order to be tortured. Like only in the first world would we see something where it's like you're going out of your way and spending all this time and money to get approved to be tortured. I'm like, oh my god, there's people in parts of the world who that happens to them for free. You know what I mean? Like, like like that's just so awful to me that like uh, that we want to like expose ourselves to torture. I don't know. I think it's so bizarre and it's very to me the way I take it is like screw you guys because there's people who are tortured like I said and they, don't want to be tortured and like you're going out of your way to be tortured because it's a little thrill, it's a little adrenaline rush. Like screw you guys.
Yeah, I definitely think it's pretty distasteful because there are people in, other situations who are tortured on a daily basis and obviously they are not enjoying it. And so to be doing this for amusement and for entertainment is just seriously messed up to me.
It's just pathetic because imagine being a prisoner of war that like got out of it or you were or even somebody who was kidnapped or something like that and then to hear that people were going out of their way and signing up and like doing like jumping through all these hoops to experience what you experienced. I would be like, dude, are you kidding me? Like seriously? I just like people are dumb. I mean, I think that's what we learn in a lot of our episodes. People are dumb.
Mm-hmm.
But moving on, we wanted to talk about Russ Mckamey himself a lot. So Russ Mckamey is the guy, as we mentioned, that started the Mckamey Mansion, and we really wanted to talk about him because, I mean, it's really interesting to both of us. Like, who is this person that started this torture house? Like what kind of person would want to start that?
Yeah, he's
So
a he's an interesting character for sure.
he is an interesting character to say the least. So, one thing Dom said was that he comes off as very charismatic, theatrical, and he has big cult leader energy, which I was like, yes, that just wraps it all up with a bow on it. Like, that is pretty much everything he is and more. So, he did serve 23 years in the Navy, and he worked 13 years in Veteran Affairs, and then ended up losing his job due to downsizing. And he said himself, like, he'll say to the participants or to people who are thinking about coming, he says, you don't want to come here. Don't do this. It's not fun. It hurts. Like he goes out of his way to tell them, you don't want to do this. And then yet he still has these thousands of people on the waiting list. So again, it's very interesting. We'll get into a little bit more of like our psychoanalysis of him in a bit. But yeah, this is all just background. And as a part of his pre-show like research, he goes as far as doing background research on the contestants or like the people who are going to be in the tour. And he tries to figure out what their biggest fears are and use them against the people in the haunted mansion, which is going back to what we were saying about normal haunted mansions. That's not normal. They might like use generally scary things, but they don't find things that are specifically scary to you. Like that is so creepy to me.
Yeah, and it's interesting to note that doing background research on people is something that like psychics or televangelists would do like before their big show. Like they would have their assistants or something like research stuff about specific people, and then they'll call them out and be like, "Oh, hey, you, do you want to talk to your dead mother or something like that?" And they're like, "Oh my God, yeah, that's exactly like what's happening to me." And they make it into a big show, and that's pretty much what it reminds me of.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that because I wouldn't have even thought of that, but that's so true that like there's been televangelists that have been exposed for doing that because as you're walking in, they give you a card that says like oh put in some things that are you're worrying about that you need prayer on. But little do the people know that they're using those cards so that they can pretend like they knew that about them just from from psychic analysis or whatever, like whatever they say it is, like from reading their mind or whatever. And it's also like I also like that you mentioned that because it's a show. Like you said, just like you said, it's a show. Like and that's the sick part of it is that like the people are really experiencing these horrible traumatic things, but it's all just for the show. Like it's they
Mm-hmm.
have a YouTube channel and you can watch the videos. I genuinely don't recommend it and I'm not saying that like oh watch at your own risk like I genuinely do not recommend watching it because like I just don't think it's good to fill your heart with darkness like that. Like I would not recommend it. I watch a lot of dark things and a lot of like sad like documentaries and like you know what I mean, but like this is another level, you guys. Like I really don't recommend it. The only reason I'm mentioning it is because just like you said, it's a show. Like they want to record it and like it's almost like he gets pleasure from it. We'll go into that a little bit in a little bit, but it seems that he gets pleasure from it, and it's almost like he wants to record it to watch it back himself, and that
Yeah,
there's other people in the world who also get pleasure from it and want to watch it as well. Like that just blows my mind. It makes me feel sick, honestly.
yeah, and obviously we had to like look at these videos ourselves just because we wanted to be as informed as possible before we did this episode. And you know what? The only thing I can say is watching it, I felt very disturbed. Like the content was very disturbing. I didn't even know how to feel while watching it. It was just hard.
Yeah, because it feels like you're watching like a little bit toned down version of like Saw or something. Or well, okay,
Hmm.
pretty toned down because in those movies like they end up literally killing them. But it's like a toned down version of like a horror movie. But then there's the aspect of like this is happening, this is really happening, and like this continues to happen, and these are real
Hmm.
people. It's just, it's just so surreal, not in a good way.
Yeah.
And speaking of those videos, we actually found one on Reddit that shows Russ forcing his ex girlfriend Holly to crawl through this maze of wire cages. And in the video, she has her hands bound and she has a hood over her head so she can't see. And she keeps saying things like, Russ, I don't want to do this and please stop. Like she's genuinely like I this isn't funny, like I don't want to do this, like please just like let me out. And Russ will just keep urging her to like just crawl through, just like do it, just do it, you're fine, you can do it. And then he'll like hose her down. He has a hose that he keeps like spraying her with. And so imagine like you have first of all your hands are tied. Secondly, you're in a tight little maze like of wire mesh. And then you have a hood on your head and you're getting hosed. Like you would feel like you're drowning and you can't do anything about it. It's so awful. And he'll just like keep hosing her and laughing like a psychopath. Like it's so disturbing. And I remember like I didn't even watch the video. I listened to it because we were on the call. And just listening to it, I was like so disturbed. I was like, oh my God, you gotta turn it off. Like, I can't even listen to this because it makes me feel so sick.
Yeah, like while I was watching this, like I said, it was very disturbing, but like he comes off as very sadistic in this video. Like he's definitely enjoying watching her struggle. Like you said, like he is laughing the entire time that she is begging him to stop.
Yeah, and it's just so disheartening to think that there's people out there like that.
Hmm.
And so we always make this joke that like I'm a psychology major, so like whenever whenever we like hear something weird about someone, I'm like, well, as a psychology major, but I'm gonna go into that little segment right now. Like as a psychology major, what do I take away from Russ Mckamey, right? So first of all, he's a weird ass person and he's
Yeah.
definitely sadistic and he takes pleasure in hurting other people. Um but one like observation I found was that a lot of times people like let's take serial killers for example. I'm not saying he's a serial killer. I'm using that as an example because they're also sadistic, obviously. But so for like serial killers, for example, they have some kind of like power or control complex. Maybe they were in a situation in their life where they had the power taken away from them. And it was just a perfect storm where they ended up becoming this monster and wanting to assert their power over other people in the most extreme way of, killing people or torturing people or whatever it might be. So usually in that situation, they I feel like they enjoy the idea of like entrapping their victims, and they revel in knowing that they were unwilling because they either pick them up, and maybe they pick them up under the guise of being like just a friendly person, just giving them a ride or whatever, just so they can get the person in the van or whatever it is. But I think they revel in the fact that like they snatched them away and it was unwilling and they don't want to do it. But with Russ, it's different because he goes so far to tell them, like, he doesn't just say like, oh, this is a little bit scary, it's not for the faint of heart, not sure if you should do it. He goes so far as to say like, please don't do this. Like we looked at the website, side note, this is neither here nor there, but the website looks like it was made in 1993 and was never edited. Just a side note, like, I just fix your website. But anyways, on the website, like when you go to like put your name in for the wait list or whatever it is, like, or to get more information, it literally says, please don't do this. Do not do this. Like, you're not going to like it. And it shows pictures of people covered in blood and just like unhappy, obviously, and like screaming. It's like, please don't do this. And so he goes out of his way to let the participants know that they're not going to like it and they shouldn't do it. And of course, part of this is just to avoid legal action. Like I said earlier, it's just to save his own ass. Like, of course, that's part of it. But another part of it almost feels like, to me, again, as like I'm not a psychologist, I don't have a PhD in psychology, but just from the things I've learned in my years of studying psychology, like the vibe I get is that he enjoys knowing that they were 100% consenting, they were 100% like willing to do this. They got background check, they got physical check, they had got they brought the dog food, they had the call, they filled out the waiver, they did all these things, they went through all the hoops, and they still wanted to do it. I feel like he takes that as like, okay, then you deserve what you get. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like for him, it's like he likes the fact that like they completely consented to it, and so he's like, well, this is what you get. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know, I don't know exactly what's going on with him. Again, we don't know that much about him, but that's like that's my analysis of him, is that he almost like wants to make sure they know what they're getting themselves into, so he can have no remorse in the awful things he does, and he can feel like, yeah, that's what you get for signing up for this, you know?
Right, yeah, and going more into what actually happens inside the manor during one of their tours, there are actually several different haunts, which is what he calls them, which are all different. And according to the Vintage News, participants can be subjected to having their hair and eyebrows shaved off, as well as being exposed to extreme temperatures, being bound and gagged, and possible needle injections and teeth pulling. And the actors, which is what they call the people who are actually like doing things to the victims or participants, they're actually able to shove or do anything else to them, but the participants cannot return contact in any way, and if they do, they'll immediately be kicked out. And because no one has completed the tour, or what, he claims that no one has completed the tour, Russ has actually offered $20,000 to anyone who completes the entire tour. And keep this in mind because we'll definitely come back to this later. So each participant is filmed through the tour for fans through a private Facebook page and on his website again, and they're called movies. And we'll go into one. This is the one that I watched, and we kind of just wanted to take you through her entire experience. And I just want to say, like, the movies, they have very choppy editing, and I feel like this was done purposely to hide the parts that he didn't want to show, because he does go back and forth and he does not show everything that is done to them.
Yeah, for sure. I know what you mean, that like he definitely shows what he wants to show. Like, even though it's so brutal and the whole idea is that it's brutal, he definitely shows what he wants to show and what would be like the most that he can show without getting in trouble. So we want to go into a specific video of a girl named Angel, and this was in the chamber haunt. So each of the haunts have like different names. So this was the chamber haunt. So while going over the waiver together with Angel and Russ, she gets to a section that says participant fully understands and agrees that MK Ultra mind control may be used, and quote, Medication may be given that induces hallucinations or sedatives given in pill form at Mckamey Manor's discretion. So, first of all, again, neither here nor there, but as a writing tutor, I'm like, you gotta work on your grammar, pal. Like, it's just like there's so many things throughout the waiver that are just written incorrectly. But anyways, again, neither here nor there. One thing I noticed here was that he was saying like MK Ultra mind control may be used, and we kind of discussed this earlier that like, okay, get over yourself. Like we did an episode on MK Ultra. And on, you know, it was done by the CIA, and it was this huge scandal, and it's like this really I use this word in the MK Ultra episode, I guess iconic, and what I mean by that is like it's really like a part of pop culture as in America. It's a big thing that happened. And so I feel like him using MK Ultra was just like I think you said like it was kind of like him getting clout. You know what I mean? It was kind of
Mm-hmm.
him being like, "Oh, like it's MK Ultra, like we're gonna like subject you to the same things they did there," and it's like, you're not. So like I don't know, like it just comes off as really purposeful. Like he's really like trying very hard to come off as like a certain thing, you know, just
Yeah.
like going out of his way to be creepy.
Yeah, and I almost feel like the waiver is a taunt to the participants because like the way he phrases it, he's like, "You're sure like this is what's happening. You're sure you understand stuff like that." And I feel like they almost like don't believe that it's actually going to happen. Like it definitely seems like a taunt to me, like the way he's going over the waiver.
Yeah, no, exactly. Because if you think about it, like for most of us, if we've like any waiver that we've signed, they're usually like really rare circumstances that it goes over. Like in the case that you die, or in the case that this happens or that happens, but it usually doesn't. So I feel like the
Mm-hmm.
people are just like, oh, like I just want to do this thing to prove X, Y, and Z to myself. I want to prove that I'm like a badass, or I can do this or that. You know what I mean? So they're just willing to be like, yeah, 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 I'm fine with all of those things. Not thinking, like you said, not thinking it's actually going to happen. You know what I mean? But at this
Mm-hmm.
point, with their YouTube video and everything, I feel like they should, you know, start to take into consideration that like these things are actually going to happen to you. But going back to Angel's video, so the tour starts, like once it actually starts, the participants are taken hostage while blindfolded and tossed inside a van. So again, they're consenting to have this done to them, or they consented prior to this happening. And then once inside the van, Angel was like pushed around and shoved like all over the place, and they wrapped chains around her neck. And Russ asked her, "quote Who's the boss?" Which just really
Disgusting.
does not sit right. Yeah. They then start to pour what looks like fake blood into her mouth, which is obviously disgusting. A lot of the videos or pictures you'll see from Mckamey Manor will have people completely covered in what looks like blood. It's usually fake blood because they love to use fake blood,
Mm-hmm.
just because it's so disgusting. It looks like blood. You know what I mean? It gets the job done. So, um, yeah. So like I think a lot of times like when you see people covered in blood, it's fake blood, but they do end up with injuries with real blood too. So it's just a mess. But yeah, so they poured fake blood into her mouth. And they also tasered her on the back of her neck and her chest, which is oh god, like we I don't have to explain how awful that is.
Right. Yeah. I
Um,
mean, everyone knows how painful tasers are. Like no one
yeah,
wants to be hit by a taser.
for real. So then eventually she passes out, and this was before they even made it to the manor. So this is still in the van, which I don't blame her for passing out at all. I would probably have passed out before that. And even when they're checking to see if she's conscious, they're still like super rough and like slapping her around, and it's just sad because it's like at that point, like, what if she was dead? You know what I mean? Like, what if she had some kind of like weird condition and like she had died, and you're slapping her around still? Like, it just shows what kind of people work at the manor. And then once she finally does wake up, she's still treated roughly, and even when the tour is over, she complains about her back really hurting. And they keep yelling at her to move and get her arms up and just like get up. And then she's taken to the ER eventually. And then they have an exit interview at the end, which is so wild to me because I would not want to talk to someone after that happened, or the person who did it at least. But in her exit interview, she said that she remembers pain and that she remembers she was dosed up. She says that whatever it was had a very bad effect on her, and that she doesn't remember most of the tour. And she also ended up with a bruised rib and a lung contusion. So that's no little issue. You know what I mean? I'm like a bruised rib and a lung contusion. That's not something you get from a haunted mansion. Like, this is obviously a torture house.
Right, and we had talked about this before about like the legality of dosing someone with drugs because again, like yes, she had apparently consented to this prior during the waiver, but I mean, is it still really considered consent when you have been dosed with a some type of drug?
And it's weird because it's like they're consenting to get drugged, but the thing
Mm-hmm.
is when you're drugged, you're in an incapacitated state. So
Right.
it's just like how with sex, like you can't say that somebody consented if they were under the influence of alcohol or drugs because they're incapacitated, they can't make normal decisions. Same thing here. It's like you can't say that they consented. Well, I mean, because that's it gets sticky because it's like they do consent to take the drugs or
Mm-hmm.
to be given the drugs, and they actually have to pass the drug test before, so they can't be drunk before or have like or not drunk, be like under the influence before. So it's like they do absolutely consent to take drugs, but it's still just like I don't know, the way I always look at it is like what if they had an adverse reaction to the drugs? Like she was saying it really did not react well with her. Obviously it's you're gonna have a bad trip if you're being slapped around and having blood poured all over you and being like getting a fucking lung contusion, you know what I mean? Like of course you're gonna have a bad trip, like things are gonna be bad. So it's very like you said, like the legality is very gray. It's not black and white because it's like they're signing up to basically give their rights away. So I don't know what to make of it, but yeah, that's what happened with Angel.
Yeah, so we also have another girl. Her name is Gabby, and we actually reached out to her on Instagram asking permission to share her experience, and she said yes, absolutely. So if you guys want to check out her Mckamey Manor videos, we'll leave the link on our website. So Gabby, in this video, she talks about her experience in the Mckamey Manor in San Diego, and this was a couple years prior. So she says that she found out about Mckamey Manor online because she was looking for a haunted house to go to since it was getting close to Halloween, and she said it was kind of advertised as a living your own horror movie, and that's what she was looking for. She really liked haunted houses, she loves scary movies and stuff like that. So, how you would be able to get in at the time was you had to join their private Facebook group, and you basically just had to wait, and they would then post something that says, hey, there are X amount of spots open, and then the first couple people to respond would be the ones to get in. And Gabby actually reached out to Russ and basically said, hey, I really want to do this, but I saw there's like a really long waiting list. Is there any way I could go sooner? And she says she actually did not have to do a physical or a drug test prior to going, and that the waiver she signed was actually only 2 pages long, so not the regular 40 or pages that we usually hear about. And, you know, it definitely wasn't 40 pages long, and they claimed that you'd have to sign that, so I don't know like what the situation was with that. So during her tour though, like it was pretty crazy. She was waterboarded, she was locked in a freezer, which was then wrapped in chains so that she couldn't get out, even when she was like pounding on it and like yelling to get out. And then she was then choked by chains, and she also remembers that someone actually spit into her mouth. So she actually lasted on the tour for 6 hours, and she actually did not quit, or she didn't say that she wanted to stop. Russ was the one who apparently said that they were done and that he decided that they had reached their limit and that they had to stop the haunt. And after that, they did their exit interview. And during her exit interview, she actually says, like, yeah, I still think it was a good experience, that I'm glad I was able to go.
That's wild that she still had like positive feelings towards it at the end. I wonder if she just felt like she had to say that for the camera or what. But
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like after you've been shaken up that bad, I would think that you'd be pretty honest. And the fact that she actually said like, "I'm happy I did this," is just blows my mind.
Yeah, well, we'll actually touch on Gabby later on too, because she does change her mind later on, and she does do an update video. But again, yeah, that is very interesting. I think, you know, like maybe after that whole experience, like your body could be in shock, you know, because I mean, your fight or flight instincts are probably going off. Your adrenaline is super high. So again, like we don't know what she was feeling at the time. Could be like she still didn't really know how to process what happened to her.
For sure. Right. And so next we want to kind of transition into just briefly a new haunt that they're introducing. They kind of have like almost like these seasonal haunts, like as far as I understand it, like different like type haunts. So this one is going to be called, or it's called Abyss 2020, And on their website, it claims that last year's haunt was nothing compared to the new Mckamey Manor, and announced that they're going to have this abyss haunt in 2020. I don't know when that's going to start now that COVID is going on, but I mean, I guess we'll see. Stay tuned. Even it's funny to think even like horrible things like this are postponed. You know what I mean? Because of
Right.
COVID. It's crazy. But so for this one, each tour can last up to 3 hours, and they warned that every tour will be different based on the guest's personal fears, and they will be physically and mentally challenged until they reach their breaking point. Which sounds, to be honest, it sounds pretty similar to what they already do, but
Hmm.
whatever. I think they're just trying to hype it up, and they're like, oh, last year's haunt is gonna be nothing. I'm like, that's only true if you kill them, but like, whatever. I mean, you know what I mean? I'm like, how much worse can you get? But apparently, apparently they're gonna make it worse, which it's crazy. And so yeah, we just wanted to mention that briefly, and then next we want to go into really the controversies of Mckamey Manor, which obviously there's
There are a
plenty of
lot,
them.
yeah.
It's a torture house that you consent to go to. Of course, there's a lot of controversies. Controversies. I've been having trouble saying that word today. So the first one we like found out about was Carol Schultz. So Carol Schultz was Russ's like best friend slash life partner. We're not like 100% sure like what the relationship was, but like they had just like been friends and like close to each other for a very long time. They actually started the original Mckamey Manor in San Diego together, so they ran the place. And it seems that controversy arose from a discrepancy between like the taxes on the Mckamey, I guess on the Mckamey Manor itself, like whether the taxes were paid or not, like who was supposed to pay them. Just there was some kind of issue with the taxes, and it seems to be the reason that they ended up moving to the south. Like they left San Diego because of these reasons. I think he might have like lost the house, or I'm not really sure what. Like it's again like everything with the Mckamey Manor is kind of convoluted and gray. Like I don't know what exactly happened. I honestly don't know. They seem to have some kind of like tax discrepancy, which is funny because it's such a sick and twisted place. And so I think we both expected that the reason Carol walked away was because like she realized it was a bad thing they were doing. But I mean, I don't know where she's at now or what's going on with her. I can't really speak on that at all because I just don't know. But it's funny that the reason it seems she left was because of money, not because of like her being like, oh, this is a horrible thing we're doing, you know? But maybe she left before it got out of hand. I don't really know. I'm not trying to like
Hmm.
say anything bad about her character. I will say bad things about Russ's character. I don't really know what, because I did hear that it started out as more of like an innocent, like haunted mansion, and then it worked its way up to what it is now. So I don't know the full situation, but that is definitely one part of the controversy, and why I believe why they ended up having to move to San Diego or to the South. And that kind of ties back into this whole idea of like he said he'll give the like the a person who makes it through the entire tour $20,000. But it seems that like if he's having all these problems with taxes and he had to move to the South, and like I just think everything considered, is he really going to give them $20,000? And like also like you were mentioning with Gabby, he called it off. It wasn't like her saying, okay, like, I can't do it anymore, like forget it, I'm done. He was the one who was like, you know what, we're not doing this anymore. And so it seems that like he seems to like shift the goalpost of like how many hours, like what's the hard deadline, or the hard like requirement that you need to get the 20,000. You know what I mean? Is it 8 hours? Is it like what, like do you have to pass out? You know what I mean? Like what is it that you have to reach to get the money? And it's very vague, it's very convoluted. So in my mind, I think in both of our minds, I don't think that's actually a part of it. I think that like he claims you'll get $20,000 if you do it, but I don't think people do it to get 20,000. I think that people go into it thinking they'll be the special one that makes it through with the 20,000. For some reason they're like the first person who can make it, but I don't think they do it for the 20,000. I think they do it for the thrill and for the torture, as weird as it sounds. And I don't think he like, I feel like it's an open lie, but
Yeah,
on
I
both
agree.
sides. You know what I mean? Like it's a like kind of an open secret that like he doesn't. I don't know if he's really willing to give anyone 20,000, because clearly he can end it whenever he wants. and I don't know if they're actually interested in the 20,000, or
Mm-hmm.
if so much so that it's the reason they did it. So I think that like the money part is really like, usually in life I'm like, oh, whatever bad thing is happening, follow it back to the money. This is the only time where I'm like, actually, I don't think money is the culprit here. I think it's actually just people, maybe who hate themselves, or people who just want an adrenaline rush, or I don't know what it is. But it actually like isn't the money, I think.
Yeah, and kind of going back to Gabby, the reason we included her experience actually is because she actually ended up posting another video years later, and she actually ended up working with Russ for a little bit, running his like Facebook and his social media. And she says that she slowly starts to realize that what Russ was doing is wrong. And like you said, like when she had first gone in there, the stuff that they were doing like wasn't too bad. Like I mean, yes, it was bad, but it definitely wasn't on the level that it is today or after she went. So she says she definitely didn't feel comfortable with how bad it was getting. And she also says that he was very manipulative. Like when she first met him, she's like, "Oh yeah, he's this amazing guy, like he's so nice." And I feel like that's what a lot of people think cuz like we said, he does come off as very charismatic in the beginning. And so but she eventually realized like he's actually very manipulative, and that's how he gets you. He acts like super friendly and stuff, and he acts like he's on your side. But when she's running his social media, she realizes that he would actually have his people like attack anyone on Facebook who would like badmouth him or say anything against the house. And that again, so she just wasn't comfortable with that, and the way that he like ramped up the extremity of what happened in the house. And she says like after years of finally getting to think about it, she is able to look back on her experience and realize just how bad it was, and that again, it was described as living through your own horror movie, and she says it wasn't like that at all. It was basically just a way for him to act out his sick fantasies. So, I think she definitely dealt with like some sort of PTSD afterwards, because again, like in the exit interview right afterwards, she says like, "Oh, I did enjoy this. I don't regret it." But later on, she does realize like, no, this is definitely bad. They should definitely be shut down for this. And speaking of like Mckamey Manor, we've mentioned Russ, but we haven't talked a lot about like the actors that he uses in his house. Basically, the people who are doing like the torturing or whatever to the participants. And we actually found a little audio clip on YouTube where the actors themselves are actually talking, and we'll insert a clip right now.
I like hurting people. Is there anything in your past that's influenced that? Definitely. Do you have any advice for Marissa? She shouldn't have shown up.
Hey boss, this is just so
She's
fucking
fucking
stupid.
dead.
You know what?
Because we're gonna fucking kill her.
Hey,
We're gonna mutilate her.
leave.
When did you start working for Mckamey Manor?
Years ago, I just got out of the penitentiary. I'm a convicted felon.
What was the felony?
What the fuck, man? Is this about me? Is this about my personal life? Go ahead and answer the question. Murder.
I definitely pull out nails. I definitely cut the hair. I definitely shave the eyebrows. Anything that's done to me, I will make sure is done to them.
I look forward to it. Like a full, long, stressful week. And then finally again to release my anger out on a Sunday afternoon.
And so this clip is really interesting because, it shows like what kind of people they are. And like, yes, it's definitely a possibility that they're like hyping up the fear factor for the camera. But to me, like, especially the last two people that spoke, they seem pretty sincere to me. And again, it seems pretty disturbing. Like the woman says, "Oh, anything that's been done to me, I'm gonna do to everyone else," which seems to speak of a former trauma, in her past. And the guy is just straight up like, "Oh, I enjoy this. I do this on the weekend to like relax or whatever. I do this on my free time just for fun."
Yeah, that was the most disturbing part for me, was when the guy's like, "Yeah, I can finally let all my anger out on a nice Sunday afternoon." I'm like, "This is what you spend your Sunday afternoon doing, torturing people? Like, get better hobbies."
Yeah. So again, like we don't know, but it's just interesting to think what happened, like what kind of people are they getting, like where are they getting them from, because there aren't, I don't know if there are any background checks or whatever. So yeah, there's that. And but what's actually interesting is that despite the fact that the haunted house or like the manor is still running, there actually haven't been any new videos posted to YouTube for a couple years. The last one that I was able to find, I think, was back in 2016. So it's been a little while, and I'm not sure if he's still posting to the private Facebook group because we're obviously not a part of it. But I just think that was something interesting to mention, is that he hasn't posted anything on YouTube in a little while.
Yeah, that is interesting. I'm wondering if like he stopped posting to avoid controversy, like if he wants to just lay low, like he still has it going on, but he doesn't want to like shoot himself in the foot, like maybe he realized like he was going too hard and he was going to like get himself caught up. So maybe that's why. I'm not really sure, but that is definitely interesting that like they haven't been posting anymore. But there is a petition on change.org to just shut this place down completely because I mean, for all the reasons that we listed, we're not going to tell you what to do. Obviously, you have to make decisions for yourself, but I definitely signed the petition. I'll just say that for myself. And there are, as of a few days ago, there are over 150,000 other signatures. Because of this place it's just been a source of so much trauma for so many people. And I just don't think anything good is really coming from it. And yeah, it's hard to see the silver lining with this thing staying open. It just seems like why are we doing this? You know what I mean? Because people keep thinking, and this is my perception, but people keep thinking that they're gonna be the one that makes it out and they're gonna be the one that's fine and like they can beat it. You know what I mean? They're tough, they're fine, and then every single time they're proven wrong. So at this point, I just feel like we can't even let people make their own decision on it. Like we just need to shut it down, which sounds like really controlling, but I really just feel like this place needs to be shut down. There's nothing good coming from it. We'll definitely link the website to where you can sign the petition if you'd like to. Of course, again, like I said, yeah, we all have to make our own decisions on this, but my own perception is that this place really does need to get shut down. But that's how I feel, and that is the end of this week's episode.
We will be back next week with a brand new episode, and if you want to get into contact with us, definitely go to our Insta. It's at Dark Matter Pod, and our Facebook, Dark Matter Podcast. And for more details, for the video and the petition, go check out our website, darkmatterpod.com.
Right, and if you want to listen to us elsewhere, you can listen on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and YouTube. And be sure to spread the word now that we're still in quarantine to your friends or family or whoever else to listen to our podcast if you enjoyed it.
Yeah, thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you guys next week.
Bye, guys.